Hello, these are artificial intelligence-generated voices, but the words read were created solely by humans using artificial intelligence for some of the writing, as well as Microsoft's Clipchamp to generate the voices and the podcast recordings.
Welcome back to our series on emergency support functions or ESFs, where we're exploring the role each one plays as it relates to disaster response, including the before and after timeframes. Today, we're discussing ESF number 14, Cross-Sector Business and Infrastructure, with my colleague Patricia Frost, Vice Chair of the National Pediatric Disaster Coalition. When the ESFs were first introduced, number 14 was recovery, and then in 2011 the National Disaster Recovery Framework was published, and all those elements moved to the 6 national recovery support functions. And then the open slot for 14 was replaced by cross-sector business and infrastructure, recognizing that the needs and support from the private sector had to be incorporated into the ESFs. Getting communities up and running again after the disaster includes supporting the critical infrastructure essential to helping children and families return to normalcy faster after a disaster. When we talk about normalcy, one of the first things that comes to mind is schools. Getting schools back up and running is a key metric of community recovery. Hi Pat, and welcome back.
Absolutely, Mike. As we have discussed before, schools are more than just places of learning. They're also where children can get nutritious meals, connect with their peers, and return to a familiar routine that helps them feel secure after the chaos of a disaster. They are essential for children's health and wellness. For parents, knowing their children are back in school gives them the ability to return to work, and that's a critical step in economic recovery for families and communities.
Yes, it's about stabilizing the family unit. Opening businesses and restoring critical infrastructure isn't just about economics, it's about giving families the tools they need to move forward. If parents can't return to work because schools are closed or childcare is unavailable, this delays that community's overall recovery process. Then, we start seeing more stress, both emotionally and financially. The risk for child maltreatment can increase after disasters too.
Exactly, and stress can be tough on children. If families struggle with unstable housing or income after a disaster, it disrupts a child's sense of security, friendships, and even development. We often talk about getting back to normal, but for kids, normal means routine, stability, and feeling safe in their environments. When schools reopen, it gives children a sense of belonging again, and for families, it's a huge step toward rebuilding their lives.
And that rebuilding process often depends on whether parents can get back to work. If businesses aren't reopening or families are displaced because of housing shortages, it prolongs the economic strain. For lower-income families especially, delays in returning to work can be catastrophic. They're not just looking at income loss, they're also facing the challenge of affording repairs or even finding a stable place to live. That creates a ripple effect, impacting children's emotional and mental well-being, and the ability of families to stay in their communities.
It's a massive disruption. Children form friendships and build social connections through their schools. And when they're uprooted, even temporarily, those bonds can get strained or even severed. This instability can create long-term challenges, not just for the children, but for the entire family dynamic. When parents are dealing with the uncertainty of income or housing, the stress trickles down to the kids. That's why ESF 14 is so vital. It's not just about restoring business as usual, it's about restoring the whole community, including its most vulnerable members.
Welcome back. And let's start connecting the dots between ESFs from the additional or cascading threat and hazard perspective. If you have a transportation crisis, roads are destroyed where people cannot get to work or to education and childcare, or you have a communication systems failure to 911 and or to child protective hotlines, those can become threats to children quite quickly.
Those are crucial aspects for emergency managers. They must look at the big picture, both the multi-agency view and the consequence management view, and bringing in the private sector, including nonprofit groups, for the totality of community restoration, including K-12 education, daycare and childcare groups, is a must.
Yes, we can't forget the important role that organizations like the Red Cross and other voluntary organizations active in disaster, or VOADs, play in this process. They're often the ones on the ground providing essential services that help stabilize families in the immediate aftermath and even in the longer recovery phase. Faith-based organizations like the Church of the Brethren and others like Child Life Disaster Relief are key players, offering child-centric support that helps children process the trauma and adjust to their new reality.
That's so true. The Red Cross is often there in the immediate response, providing shelter, meals, and emotional support. But VOAD groups like the Church of the Brethren go even further by addressing the specific needs of children. For example, their Child Disaster Services program creates safe spaces where children can play, process, and regain control. Another disaster response volunteer organization is Child Life Disaster Relief, which deploys trained child life professionals who help children cope with the emotional impact of disasters through play and other therapeutic activities. And there is a newer group out there called Project Camp, which sets up pop-up camps for kids after major disasters.
These organizations are critical in filling the gaps that government services sometimes can't. They make sure the unique needs of children are not overlooked during recovery. And their work starts during the response phase, which is why they need to be part of an ESF. They work hand in hand with schools, healthcare providers, and other sectors to ensure that children can transition back to their routines as quickly as possible.
Yes, and that's part of why VOADs at the state/territory level and community organizations active in disasters, or COADs for the county and local levels, are crucial to the cross-sector recovery efforts under ESF 14. They understand the unique needs of children and families, and provide both immediate relief and long-term support. Whether they help restore stability in housing, ensure children are mentally and emotionally supported, or offer childcare services while parents return to work, VOADs and COADs are essential partners in this recovery process.
Exactly. It's all about collaboration between sectors, businesses, schools, housing, and these community organizations, all working together to restore normalcy for families. The quicker we can bring that stability back, the quicker families and children can heal and thrive.
That's really the goal, to make sure children and families can bounce back from a disaster as smoothly as possible. Whether it's reopening schools or ensuring that families have the financial and housing support they need, ESF 14 plays a critical role in getting communities back on their feet.
So, as we consider disaster recovery, let's remember that it's not just about infrastructure, it's about people, especially children, who are counting on a quick return to normalcy. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time as we continue our podcast series on emergency support functions with ESF 15, External Affairs. And please recall to use hashtag Prep for the Kids when promoting any of our social media posts or podcast links. Thank you.
Please visit us on the web at npdcoalition.org. Our vision is to support the development of a unified medical and health emergency management community to prepare, respond, and recover from emergencies and disasters.